We just found out everything there is to know about the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 Pro, and since I'm a working photographer, I thought I'd let you know what you should or should not be excited about in these new camera upgrades. Starting with the iPhone 13 and 13 mini, its sensor is now 47% larger, meaning more sensitive to light, better image quality than the iPhone 12. And this is good news. So last year, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, that's the top of the line, by far the most expensive one, it had what seems to be the same sensor. It was also 47% bigger, and this is especially useful in more challenging lighting situations like when it's darker. I did a direct comparison last year between the smaller sensor and this bigger one, so there'll be a link in the description if you want to check out that video and basically get a preview of what this is probably going to look like. But there's also a new image signal processor, and I know that doesn't get as much hype as the hardware, but it's a huge part of what makes the photos look the way they do. So you're going to have to actually see the final test results to judge it, because Apple does mix things up a little bit each year. Now, the ultra-wide lens, my favorite lens, has gotten some improvements, but they're not really obvious exactly what they are by looking at the specs. In last year's iPhone, the ultra-wide had an aperture of f2.4, which is not all that fast. So in low light, it would be pretty grainy, not the best image quality. And you'd notice the difference between using the standard lens and the ultra-wide. It wasn't as good. But there is good news to come with that, so stay tuned for when we talk about the Pro. So if you know you're in the market for a 13 mini or a 13, you don't want to spend the money on a Pro, this is probably a great upgrade, especially if you're on anything older than an iPhone 11. You'll really see the difference, but you probably don't need to make a year-over-year upgrade on this one. Next, we're going to talk about one of the most visibly cool features in the upgrade, cinematic mode. But first, a big thank you to the sponsor of this video, Casetify. So if you're going to be ordering a new iPhone soon, you definitely want to go check out Casetify to get a new case to keep it safe, protected, and looking very cool. Their new Impact and Ultra Impact cases are made of 65% recycled and plant-based material, and all cases come in 100% recycled packaging made in recycled paper, non-toxic soy ink. Not only do they offer drop protection of up to 9.8 feet, but that shock-absorbing material is also compatible with wireless charging and 5G. They have a massive selection of different prints and designs to choose from. You can customize them all you like. Their cases are 100% BPA-free, 100% non-toxic, and feature an antimicrobial coating that kills up to 99% of bacteria. So head to casetify.com/Tyler Stalman to get 15% off your order and keep your iPhone 13 safe. So in terms of marketing, cinematic mode looks like iPhone 13's big feature that they're going to push and will get people excited just because looking at it looks pretty cool. I found that Apple announced this in kind of a weird way. Like watching the keynote, it seemed to be mostly about focus racking, which is a cinema thing that I think most normal people don't spend much time thinking about. So I could do it right now on manual focus. I could rack focus to the TV, back to my face, back to the TV, to the tip of my arm. So that's a focus rack. It's in movies all the time. It's a thing people will use and do cool things with. But this really seemed like the feature was digital bokeh, like live photos in videos. This is pretty cool and something people have been asking about for a while. But Apple didn't really describe it that way until late in the keynote, when they mentioned that using metadata, you can actually change the focus in post. So after you've shot it, you can move the focus back and forth. That's really cool. But maybe what makes this coolest is that I didn't notice while I was watching that it was digital blur. Like I wondered about it and I thought about it, but it looked really good. So here were my impressions. The actual racking, the moving back and forth, it looked digital. Like you could tell that it wasn't a human doing it, but the blur looked really good. And I expected it to look not so good. In fact, I tweeted about this a few weeks before the keynote that if they were going to do it, don't expect too much. It's not going to look great. So far, I'm pretty impressed, but obviously I'll have to test this hands-on to know for sure. I did see a few people on Twitter asking if this was LiDAR, and I don't think it is because they weren't using it for portrait mode before. This is all just digital and using the pixels to map the distance. If you want to find out an answer, just follow me on Twitter. I'll be trying to track it down for sure over there. All those features are available from the iPhone 13 to the 13 Pro Max, but now let's talk about the Pro specific features because I think they're way more exciting. First of all, the cameras are now the same between the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max, which was much more confusing to talk about last year when they were different. So the differences you're going to find are the size of the screen and the battery life, and I think that's actually it. So this was also good news if you're on the edge of upgrading from a 13 to a 13 Pro. Now you don't have to go all the way to the Pro Max to get those benefits, which is what you had to do with the 12. So it was more expensive to get the best of the best. Now it's not. Both Pro phones now feature Pro Motion, a feature I've been very excited about for a while because we've had it on iPads for years now, and it looks really good. You do see the difference. This is an adaptive frame rate up to 120 hertz. So any filmmakers out there, don't get confused. This is not so that you can start shooting everything at 120 frames per second and see it play back smoothly. That's totally not the point. What this is especially good for is the interface. So if you're, drawing, let's say, you'll see the pixels keep up perfectly in sync with your finger. Scrolling looks more smooth. It really helps with digital animations the most, but it's adaptive, so it's going to play back whatever frame rate is appropriate to the content on screen. So I usually shoot at 24 frames per second. That's probably the hertz that it's going to choose to play that footage back. Both Pro models have that larger sensor that you could only get in the Pro Max last year, but now it's in both of them, and it is sensor stabilized. So this means you're going to get more stable footage across everything. This is also in the 13. I think I forgot to mention that earlier. But now the big differences in the Pro, there's a telephoto lens, so that doesn't even exist on the others, but it also got a lot longer this year. It is now a 3 times zoom. Before, it used to be a 52 millimeter equivalent in the traditional photography world, which we would call that a normal lens. Like, it's not really wide, it's not really a zoom, it's normal, it's in between. Now it's equivalent to a 77 millimeter. Traditionally, 85 is like the sweet spot for portraits. 77 is getting really close to that. So this is more of a real telephoto lens, and I think it's going to be a lot more useful in a lot of cases. It's still f2.8. That's not really fast for a phone, so it's still not going to be as good in low light as the wide camera. But now the part that I'm most excited about, I think is going to be the biggest change for me anyway. That is the brand new ultra wide on the Pros. Totally redesigned. It is very obvious how it's different. Still 13 millimeters, which is incredibly wide. Like, that's not even common on professional cameras. It's wider than wide. The aperture upgrade goes from previously 2.4 up to f1.6, which is a huge upgrade. That cost in professional lenses, you're spending $1,000 more to get that difference. It's really significant. So I'm expecting big things, especially in low light, using that ultra wide. But of course, who knows? I mean, maybe it won't be great. This is a good time for you to subscribe if you haven't already, because I'll be testing all of this very soon, and you can see the hands-on reality of what kind of image quality there is. Another neat trick they snuck in is macro photography on that ultra wide, so you can get extremely close. They said about 2 centimeters to objects. So yeah, that is very close. That is real macro, and it's nice that you don't have to add an adapter, which is kind of what you had to do before. And the screen also offers a brighter peak brightness. So especially outdoors, you'll be able to see images a lot better. And when I talk to other professional photographers, the screen is a lot of the reason that the iPhone is the go-to for any professionals, really, because you can trust it more. It's super bright, color accurate. I really appreciate iPhone screens. For video creators, they can also capture ProRes. This is a format we are very familiar with and works incredibly well on Apple devices. So this feature isn't actually mostly about quality, it's more about workflow. When you download all of your iPhone videos to a computer and start editing it, even in Final Cut, which is pretty optimized, it's not really fast working with iPhone videos. They're so compressed, they're made so much smaller that the computer has to work really hard to expand them back out. ProRes is already kind of bigger, and computers can just chew through it. I'm curious what to see some of the professional video apps can do with that and recording. 10-bit log, for example. It might be able to extract more data from the videos. We'll have to see. And I feel like I need to explain this every single time I make an iPhone video, but yes, professionals use phones to make professional content all the time. It's very common these days. Another new feature is photographic styles. This is on the 13 and 13 Pro. I've never really used Apple's filters before, but this feature seems to be in the image pipeline. So something is happening to it before the final image is saved to the phone. So it might make a real difference. The styles I heard Apple mention was rich, contrast, and vibrant, which are not the ones I'm looking for. I'd like to see low contrast, so then I could extract a little more data after I edit the image, but I definitely want to try this. Apple is also saying that battery life is going to get a lot better, which is a photography feature if you're going to bring your phone around with you all day. On the 12, I still could pretty easily kill my phone by the end of the day. I wouldn't make it the whole time. So I'm excited about the extra 1.5 to 2.5 hours that the different models say that they could have. Something I noticed if you're considering which one to buy, so on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you can get up to 28 hours of video playback. That's a lot. So that's close to double the battery life of video playback on the Mini, which is estimated at 17. Just for point of reference, that'll be a huge difference between the biggest and smallest phone. And also they added a 1 TB option for storage, which seems impossibly large, but my wife's phone, 512, completely filled recently, and it took us a very long time to dump it off of the phone onto a computer. So there are people that use that much storage on their iPhone. So if you want to learn anything else about iPhones, I've got an Apple playlist that you really should be watching. It's going to teach you about photography, Apple, how to use your camera, all that stuff. It's all in there. I'll see you in the next video.